Thank you very much. Renascor Resources is a South Australian-based company now operating in the battery mineral space after our discovery of one of the world's largest graphite resources located in our home state of South Australia. Our Siviour resource is currently the world's second largest proven reserve of graphite and the largest reserve of graphite outside of Africa. For the last going on 5.5 years now, we've been developing not just the resource at Siviour, but an advanced technology to refine graphite we'll be mining at Siviour into a purified spherical graphite form that can be used directly in the manufacture of lithium-ion battery anodes. We believe we're going to have a key competitive advantage in producing this purified spherical graphite, really because of two factors. The first is the resource itself, not only its scale, but also its quality. And the second factor is the location in a low sovereign risk jurisdiction, a modern industrial jurisdiction like Australia, where we can then refine that into a higher value product. We believe we're going to be amongst the lowest cost producers of purified spherical graphite, certainly outside of China. And this gives us an opportunity to transition Siviour into one of, if not the largest, graphite projects globally. Quick corporate profile, we trade under the ticker symbol RNU. You can see our share price performance over the past 12 months. We got some re-rating events really over the course of the beginning and then the middle part of the year, and that coincided with 4 major offtake announcements, including a recent non-binding offtake for up to 100% of our stage 1 capacity with the South Korean conglomerate POSCO. We're well cashed up. We have over $16 million in the bank as of the end of the last quarter. And importantly, that puts us in a position where we'll be able to fund all of our upcoming work over the next several months into next year when we believe we'll get to a final investment decision. Now, to give you an idea of where we sit in the lithium-ion battery supply chain, we're doing something a bit different. We have a graphite mine where we'll be producing a graphite concentrate in a traditional mining setting, but then we want to take that one step further and create a secondary vertical operation that refines that into its purified spherical graphite form. And what that's going to allow us to do is not to sell to an intermediate processor. We're going to sell directly to lithium-ion battery anodes. And these are the companies we're dealing with on the offtake side. Anode companies then go through a coating and a heating process, and they provide that anode material to battery cell manufacturers who provide it to electric vehicle makers. So effectively, our primary product is purified spherical graphite, and our customer base are lithium-ion battery anode companies. A few words on the graphite market. And graphite, like other minerals you've heard about today, is really being impacted by what's happening in electric vehicles and the uptick in lithium-ion batteries. Now, as you heard some of the other speakers talk about, graphite is the key component that goes not in the cathode, but in the negative electrode in the battery, in the anode. There's no substitute for graphite here. Now, if you need more lithium-ion batteries, you can see the demand curve here for anodes. Anodes are really tracking lithium-ion batteries. So the question then is, what's happening with purified spherical graphite for us? This is the key material we're producing, and we're really at the beginning of a major increase in demand for purified spherical graphite with compounded annual growth rates of upwards of 30%. At this rate, you would need about 90 projects of our size by the end of the decade. And now remember, we're producing purified spherical graphite as well as graphite concentrates. But for us, graphite concentrate is the raw material feedstock that goes into our downstream operation to produce purified spherical graphite. Right now, graphite concentrates haven't yet made the transition into a battery mineral. Only about a quarter of all graphite that's currently produced goes into lithium-ion batteries. And this means graphite companies sometimes have a difficult time getting direct exposure to the lithium-ion battery demand growth. In our case, however, we're moving to produce purified spherical graphite. This gives us 100% exposure to lithium-ion battery growth. Now, in terms of where those lithium-ion batteries anodes are being made, the market and our customer base is currently located exclusively in Northeast Asia. About 85% of all lithium-ion battery anodes are made in China, South Korea and Japan make up the remaining 15%. There are plans in the future, I suppose, to build them in places like Europe and the United States to coincide with some of the gigafactories that are being built. But currently, none of even the top 50 anode manufacturers globally have announced plans to move to Europe or to the United States. So what this means for us is our customer base is decidedly Northeast Asian focused. Where are they getting their purified spherical graphite now? Well, it all comes through China. China has a 100% monopoly on the intermediate processing route to produce purified spherical graphite. China is actually importing graphite concentrates to meet that demand, but customers, whether they're in China, whether in South Korea or Japan, all have to go through China right now to get purified spherical graphite. So our plan is to be the lowest cost producer of purified spherical graphite outside of China. Now, we think we can do this with our project. And really, there are two things that I think differentiate us and give us the competitive advantage here. The first, again, is location. You can see here on the map where we're located. We're located just out of the coastal town Arno Bay on the Eyre Peninsula of South Australia. Our plan is to mine there, produce a graphite concentrate. We'll truck that to the port of South Australia, Port Adelaide, and we'll upgrade it to a purified spherical graphite at a secondary operation along the way. Now, why this is an advantage is because we don't have to move our material. Our material is located in a good jurisdiction to upgrade it. We're not going to be transporting it around a continent to do it. We're going to do it in one location. The second reason we believe we have a cost advantage is because of the resource itself. So Siviour is large, the second largest proven reserve in the world, largest reserve outside of Africa, but in addition to being large, it has a relatively unique flat-lying orientation, which you can see on the cross-section here. So we're showing Siviour here in the shade of red. And to give you an idea of what graphite deposits generally look like, we've included in the two shades of blue and green other graphite deposits. And you can see graphite tends to form vertically or subvertically and consists of a series of lenses. Siviour's different though. It's flat, it's near surface, it has thick sections of graphite, and that puts our mining costs comparatively low. So when we completed our definitive feasibility study, it puts our projected cost to produce graphite concentrates at amongst the lowest cost of any graphite development in the world. Now, it's probably hard to see, but the other jurisdictions tend to be in places like China or Mozambique or Tanzania. The benefit we have being in South Australia then is we can do the higher value-added work here and produce purified spherical graphite. We completed a study at the midpoint of last year, and it put our projected operating costs at about US $2,000 a ton gross. And we believe that makes us competitive with the median prices coming out of China, but more to the point, we think we're going to be the lowest cost producer outside of China. And that's because the single largest component cost in the production of purified spherical graphite is the raw material that goes into it, the graphite concentrates. We're going to be able to produce that at a low cost, about $350 US a ton. So that takes up about 35% of the total cost once you convert it into a purified spherical graphite form. If we were buying that material at the market, at current market prices, it would cost us about $400 more US a ton. If you look at projected graphite prices moving forward, over the life of the mine, it would cost us over $1,100 more per ton if we weren't using our own low-cost source of graphite concentrates. So quite simply, we think we're going to be the lowest cost producer of purified spherical graphite outside of China. We completed a study at the midpoint of last year, producing 28,000 tons of the purified spherical graphite product. We have a capital cost projected at US $142 million, and it gives us a net present value of just under $500 million US. Now, at the time, 28,000 tons looked like a bit of a stretch goal in terms of where the anode market was going. We didn't have any offtake agreements. We now have 4 offtake agreements that account to up to 200% of that capacity. So as you can guess, we're looking at expanding our production, expanding a stage 1, bringing on a stage 2. So if anything, we think there's a potential to increase these numbers here. ESG is becoming obviously increasingly important, in particular in the battery mineral sector. And again, here we think we have some leading credentials, and part of that is simply just based on where we're located. We're located in South Australia, but the same would be true for any jurisdiction in Australia. The environmental rules are some of the strictest in the world. So that's an advantage. We follow those rules. Secondly, we've adopted a purification process that we believe is more environmentally friendly than the predominant technology used in China, which uses hydrofluoric acid. We don't use hydrofluoric acid, but we've been able to consistently get our product qualified by our offtake partners and meet all battery specifications. And then finally, we simply optimize the use of local resources. From an ESG perspective, this is becoming increasingly important. We're not taking graphite from one jurisdiction, moving it across a country or even a continent somewhere else, upgrading and then bringing it to customer. We're taking it from the mine, upgrading it, getting it to port, and getting it to customer. So on offtake, the probably most significant offtake agreement we have with POSCO. For those of you who don't know POSCO is a major steel maker. It's also a major maker of lithium-ion battery anodes and cathodes. POSCO is also Australia's single largest private export customer. So POSCO is a good offtake partner. We have a non-binding agreement with them to purchase up to 30,000 tons from us. And again, that would account for 100% of our current stage 1 capacity. We have 3 additional offtake agreements, 2 with Chinese anode companies, a 3rd with the Japanese trading company, which gives us access to the 2nd largest market for lithium-ion batteries in the world, which is Japan. And even since we've done this, we're getting increasing interest from other anode companies. So if anything, we think there's significant potential to expand beyond that 28,000 tons of purified spherical graphite. Finally, we've been getting, I guess, an increasing amount of support from the Australian government. And we were awarded major project status by the federal government. We're the only graphite deposit in Australia that's been named on the Selected Australia Critical Minerals Roadmap. We have in-principle financial support from the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and from Export Finance Australia. And this might be the best example of how some government support could lead to a good commercial outcome. If we're successful at converting that in-principle support into financial support, it would give us much more advantageous debt terms. And again, this would allow us to transition into operation, which of course for developments like us is the major challenge. Going forward for Renascor, what's next? Well, we're really working on 3 work streams right now. On the regulatory side, we have our mining lease for our upstream operation. We've submitted the secondary application, the PEPA, the South Australian secondary application process. We expect to get that at the beginning of next year. We'll be looking to get our downstream approvals for the downstream site. And then we're working on the technical side on optimization work on our DFS, and then the detailed engineering for the downstream, and again, sizing that to meet the expectations of our offtake customers. And then finally, on the offtake side, our offtake agreement is now non-binding. We need to convert that into binding. We've gone through first stage product qualification with our offtake partners, and what we're working on now is we're working on negotiating price terms and trying to get concrete binding offtake. We expect to be into final investment decision next year, and then that would allow us to transition into construction, hopefully start producing purified spherical graphite for export near the end of 2023 and be in full production by 2024. So going forward for us, we expect to have, I guess, a significant amount of news flow as we move through these milestones moving forward and de-risk the project. And again, we haven't seen graphite take off like lithium yet from a price perspective. But on a supply and demand perspective, we think it's inevitable. That's going to push it forward, and that's why we're seeing the greater demand from the lithium-ion battery anode companies. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow us to transition this from, again, what we think looks like one of the more exciting undeveloped projects in Australia into, we believe, one of, if not the largest graphite developments globally. Thanks everybody for listening. We have a booth outside. I'm here with 2 of my directors, Dick Keevers and Stephen Bizzle. We'd be happy to answer any questions, and see you next time.